All right. I think I'm live. I think everything is working. Oh, change the media asset. There we go. We got me. This is a much later time for me. Let me know if the audio is working because I'm using headphones. I didn't check it before I came in here, but I saw Christian did a stream, Christian Baxter _YT. And I think maybe Pete is currently doing a stream. So sorry for stepping on you, Pete. Wasn't intending to. This is just the time that it worked for me. I really wanted to do one this morning, but thank you, Schenkenstein. But a lot of things came up. So I want to read some of the Bible. So here we go. 1 Corinthians 8. So we say, I don't know. We'll see how much I want to read, see how much I want to comment on it, and then I'm going to start riffing, and then I'll open it up. So now concerning food offered to idols. We know that all of us possess knowledge. A quote from something. This knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. I learned edifies. If anyone imagines he knows something, he does not yet know as he ought to know. But if anyone loves God, he is known by God. I might read perhaps my favorite George MacDonald Lilith quote after this. Therefore, as to the eating of food offered to idols, we know that an idol has no real existence, and that there is no God but one. For although there may be so-called gods in heaven or on earth, as indeed there are many gods and many lords, yet for us there is one God, the Father, from whom all things are known. Shout out to Sam Tiedemann. And for whom we exist, and one Lord Jesus Christ, through whom are all things, and through whom we exist. However, not all possess this knowledge. I would almost, quick interjection, I would almost use knowledge as information. Because I'm going to talk about information and meaning, and I'm going to talk about information economies and ecologies and personal spaces of relational ontology, spaces where you are known, spaces where you know being known. So, however, not all possess this knowledge, that there's one God, the Father, from whom are all things, and for whom we exist, and one Lord Jesus Christ, through whom are all things, and through whom we exist. So not all possess this knowledge. They either don't know it, they're either ignorant of it, or they do not, in the modern term, I would say they do not self-identify with it, propositionally and confessionally. Increasingly, it's like these Christian atheists of like Douglas Murray, perhaps Tom Holland. There's some, a friend, Ken, shared me a video, a podcast the other day. Do I still have it pulled up? It's from Honestly with Barry Weiss. Can America survive without Christianity? And it's with, oh, come on, tell me the details, kids. She talks with Jonathan Rauch, and he says Christianity is a load-bearing wall of American civic life. In other words, the success of liberal democracy depends on a healthy Christianity to support it. And if Christianity falters, our American project will falter too. And so it's interesting because he's an atheist Jewish man, gay man. So kind of like Douglas Murray, but Jewish. And so anyhow, I bring all that to say, like, this guy he kind of does and does not possess this knowledge. Anyhow. So back to the text. However, not all possess this knowledge, but some, through former association with idols, eat food as if really offered to an idol, and their conscience, being weak, is defiled. For food will not commend us to God. We are no worse off if we do eat it, and no better if we do not eat, and no better off if we do. This is the hard problem of all perception, and this is the hard problem This is why the person is the nexus and locus of all meaning and beauty. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so is truth. Because what's he just saying? The morality doesn't lie in the food, and if it's offered to idols or not. The morality exists in our participation with our beliefs in that thing, because he goes on to say this. So it's like the double slit experiment. It's like it's this or this. It's the non-duality that includes duality. So I mean, this is relative. This is relative morality. Hey, Paul, what's up? So he's saying we are no worse off if we do eat, and no better off if we do not, or if we do. But take care that this right of yours does not somehow become a stumbling block for the weak. So he's saying you can eat it, it's fine. But don't do it if it's a stumbling block for the weak. And he'll go on, For if anyone sees you who have knowledge eating, so have proper knowledge regarding food sacrificed to idols, in an idol's temple, will he not be encouraged? If his conscience is weak to eat food offered to idols? And so by your knowledge, this weak person is destroyed, and the brother for whom Christ died. Thus, sinning against your brothers and wounding their conscience when it is weak, you sin against Christ. Therefore, if food makes my brother stumble, I will never eat it. Eat meat, lest to make my brother stumble. And then he goes on, surrendering. Am I not free? Am I not apostle? Have I not seen the Lord Jesus Christ? And goes on to talk about his rights and whatever stuff. But the point I want to focus on is the knowledge that he's talking about. Because he's essentially saying you can be wrong and be right. You could be right and be wrong, or be right and be wrong. You can be right about your knowledge that food sacrificed to idols is nothing. It doesn't matter. But if you are relationally wrong, if your brother sees you do it and then his weak conscience is affected by that, and he either judges you or sinfully partakes of it because to him it is wrong, how can you not read this without it being relative? Like, it's just, it's not. It is relative. And I think, I don't think it's completely arbitrary. This is where our boy, Jedediah Pascal, said, truth is relative, but not arbitrary. It's not arbitrary because we live, because we live bodied, historic, incarnated lives of continuancy. We have tradition. Our body is a tradition. And so, like, this is the degree of objectivity that is there. And so, like, I'm not trying to say that, like, 100% fully someone could just be like, Skittles aren't bad for me, and eat Skittles all day and it not affect them. I do think it will affect them. However, there is some degree that your mental and intentional and what you believe about the Skittles it's placebo and nocebo. What you believe about what you are doing does affect the outcome. That is your participation in whatever enacting that you're doing. And Paul is saying that, he's saying, like, you can do this exact same thing and it can be sinful and it cannot be sinful. And what is the condition of it all? Relationality, love. So, oh man, I was thinking about this earlier, and I was going to put some structure on it. I had structure in my mind. How do I want to talk about it? So, I was listening as I was running around doing things, getting all this set up, and doing prepping for the rest of my day, finishing up the other things I was working on. I was listening to a little bit of Seaback's and his live stream, and he was talking with Chad. And I don't know, that was nice, because I was really, and Chad, if you're watching this, I don't know if you're out there, you haven't commented. I know you're trying to have a little bit of restraint with this. You were talking about that, confessing it, and you've been struggling a little bit. I really love that guy, and I'm thinking part of what he's struggling is, Nate, and if you're listening to this, I'm using your StreamYard. I love you. We need to have this conversation about some of the criticisms on X that Nate has been laying toward, I mean, essentially PVK a little bit. And Nate's just been a lot more fired up politically and geopolitically about this rise in anti-Semitism and whatever, all that. Like, I don't want to get, again, I don't want to get caught up in the objectivity and the facts of, because this is what here's where I'll go. Okay, I'm getting my footing. This is what knowledge, right? Because knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. That's, if I was mapping this chapter of 1 Corinthians, which I've done with the whole book of 1 Corinthians, it's probably my favorite book in the Bible. I don't know. It's up there. I've spent a lot of time studying it, especially early on in my marriage, really embracing my faith. I use the MacArthur study Bible, or the MacArthur study method of reading. I think I both read 1 Corinthians all the way through every day for like a month. And then I also went through and did biblical mapping that I learned at Bethlehem Baptist, and John Piper taught me this, of mapping all these words and making connections and seeing things. And so I would say that verse, so like, knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. And then adding to that, it says, if anyone imagines that he knows something he does not yet know as he ought to know, which to me is like, it's the summary of a proper Christian epistemology. But if anyone loves God, he is known by God. This whole chapter is personalist knowing. Because it's saying the objectivity of the food sacrificed to idols doesn't matter. It's not that it doesn't matter completely. It's not the main thing. The main thing is the relation, the love. Is it causing your brother to stumble? Well, then don't eat it. Because if it's causing your brother to stumble and you eat it and you say, whatever, screw him, I'm right, doesn't matter, that's on him. Am I my brother's keeper? Well, then you're in sin. Because the main thing, this is it. The road to hell is paved with first principles. Also, objectivism and absolute truth is evil. The mode of absolute truth and information ecologies and knowledge is that if you elevate knowledge above the relation, what he's saying in this chapter is that sin. Like, because you can be right and be wrong, or be wrong and be right. And so back to the practical. Let's circle big and come into the practical, and let's talk about Nate, TLC, anti-Semitism, because we need to be able to talk about these things. To quote Rod Hare, the quality of the relationship is inversely proportional to the amount of topics that are off the table. It makes me, what is happening in this little, and this happens, there's little fights in the TLC in these moments, and people get sideways. And so right now, Nate is concerned about the rise of, like, I don't know, the woke right and potential fascism and whatever. I mean, if he's out there, he could talk about it, and anti-Semitism, because, and this is where I'll agree with Nate, because in the way that I generally see the last election, if we just want to say it, is it was a choice between globalist, deep state, capitalists, essentially. I mean, I think that's what it was. And a more nationalist, popularist in Trump. It wasn't like, and you can make Christian arguments on both sides of it. But what happens in a rise of nationalism versus a globalist perspective is that it becomes, it's more introverted. It's just like, it's focused on your country. And when you're just focused on your country, there is an increased rise of I think there's a potential for an increase in seeds of fascism. Let's say it that way. It doesn't necessarily mean that being nationalistic or patriotic is fascistic, because that's a hard word to say, because C.S. Lewis talks about this really well in his 4 love books on patriotism. And he's saying, loving your country doesn't mean you hate other people, and protecting your family doesn't mean you hate other people. It's just, it's part of living an embodied life, you know. Me marrying my wife and having an exclusive relationship with her isn't a condemnation on all other women. So, but like, let's say this. So let's say it's food sacrifice to idols. Let's say there's an increase in anti-Semitism in the TLC. Okay. If you're right about that, and you're being right about it and insisting on it causes a brother to stumble, I would argue you're in sin. Nate, you're here. Okay, so if I'm mischaracterizing you, you can tell me. I don't want it to get, but here's the thing. I absolutely do not want the stream to be derailed in the particular of, because I don't want the stream to fall into an information and an objectivism ecology of a bickering in a binary way of who's right about facts. Because that's the whole idea, is I'm trying to talk about, I am in an informational way trying to talk about that, trampling down death by death, trampling down an information ecology with information. But then I'm also trying to model and create a space and be hospitable where the persons are primary, not their opinions, not their ideologies, not them being the facts, having all the right facts. And I agree, you must have enemies in order to love them, for sure. So, and this is something that I see. I really, this is the last thing I'll say, and then I'll open it up and we can play and talk if people want to play and talk. Because, but I really mean that, play and talk. I don't mean argue and win. I don't mean like a power hierarchy of Kathy Newman, of like playing gotcha and winning with facts and logic and first principles and objectivism, because that's what I'm speaking against. A space of hospitality where you speak and listen, and you love and you grow and you advance and you learn and you evolve. So, I got distracted, Matt, by your comment. Michael, Ethan told me he met you down in Texas, so thanks for being here. I really think this is important. I really, really, really think that this idea, that's the knowledge, but this reality, this way of being in the world, this adverbial way of being and interacting with other persons about facts and truth in the world is the way. And it's so much different than an information thing. Like there's one other way I want to, so Ross Bird has been coming up a lot in the corner. Ethan talked to him. PVK treated him in the homeroom this morning. And what did he say? Oh, shoot. What did he say in the comment? He said something in the video, and it's the only comment that I made on Ethan's video. Let me go find it. I think it's the only comment that I made. Actually, I think I sent it to Ethan in a Signal thing. Did I? I didn't screenshot it. Okay, shoot. Sorry. Stick with me. I apologize. Where are we at? Okay. Okay. I said, okay. Oh, yes. So he said, this is it. And this has to do with, it's McLuhan and mediums. So we are in the liminal space where we are moving from a text-based medium to an oral, video, visual medium. And I pretty firmly believe that most modern institutions, almost all of them, when people talk about institutions, and an institution is really a kind of a body, I would call an institution a subspecies of a body, corporate body, corporation. An institution is a spiritual body, and it's a subset of a spiritual body. I think modern institutions are rooted in the medium of the written word. Now we're in a liminal space of, I think, a new medium because of this new technology, and I think we're going to need new wineskins for the new wine of this new medium. And so in this video at like 48, this is the Ethan Rossberg video. He said something that he started doing in his liturgy, because Ross is talking about how he's really committing to a place and a people and getting on similar liturgies. He said lectionaries, but he like is making up his own lectionary. And he said that way you can be on the same page. And I don't even think he meant to use that metaphor intentionally, but it's illustrative of what he's saying. To be on the same page, not literally, but actually and literally, means that we are reading the same things. We are taking in the same stuff. And he said it would be really cool. He said, yeah, it would be really cool if people in the TLC were doing that. And we have done that a lot. We've had book clubs. We've read similar things. Sherry's often doing that on Grail Country. Like, what were they just reading? I was watching this morning. They're reading, it was a cool thing that I didn't know of. I was like, oh, this is the Heliond and the Saxon Gospel. So they're on the same page. They're reading the same thing and then they're talking about it. So they're melding the literal medium and the oral, spoken, conversational, social media medium. But my point to Ross is that it's fine to read things. You know, I don't think books and written word is going away. But I said the TLC does do that all the time. PVK Homeroom is us being on the same page. We are watching the same things. We are engaging in the same conversations. And I don't think that it is merely, this is the information ecology thing too. I don't think it's merely content. And that I made a post about this because YouTube sent me like this little 1-question survey thing that popped up in YouTube. And it's just like, what was it? I forgot what it was already again. But thankfully I have a post where I'm talking about it. It said, how much am I interested in sharing content on YouTube? And I said, not at all. And I said, I'm interested in playing in this medium to get to know people and to learn, because I think that's the same thing. Knowing as you are known. So proper knowledge isn't facts. It isn't like this food sacrifice to an idol is bad. It's relational. It's root. This is the big difference between substance and relational ontology. And pay attention to what people say when they say this stuff, because they're showing you if they are within the spiritual space of an information ecology or in a relational ecology. And you can see it. Even if you can't put names on it, you can see it. Hopefully, in my streams, you can see that I'm committed to a relational ecology. Does that mean that I won't fall into the kind of dogmatism comes out of an information ecology? You can't be dogmatic when you're in a relational ecology. You can't. So Nick Freerillian, he was telling me that on Twitter. He's just like, the anti-dogmatists need to just admit they're being dogmatists and they can move on. And I was like, I'm not a dogmatist. And he's like, I am. And we all are. And I'm like, well, yeah, I think that's some projecting. I'm not a dogmatist. And hopefully I can show you that by what I do. But it's very, to me, this is why TLC is important. And for all the fears of whoever's having fears, whether it's the PVK sphere, or it's Jacob, and like we need to direct this to something, and sorry Nate, but like if it's Nate and saying like we're becoming anti-Semitic, and it's like all these different concerns that are going on. Okay, whatever. That's all knowledge, and knowledge will cease. Paul says that later. Knowledge is going to go away. Knowledge is not ultimate. Knowledge isn't eternal. So what is eternal are the relations, the friends we make along the way. I'm not being dogmatic about it then, because here's the thing. If I were to die on that hill, then I would be acting in a way that would be hypocritical, and it would be contra to my profession, my actual witness, martyrdom. It would be contrary to my martyrdom. And so what a Christian should do, I think, this is kind of where I believe, and this is where like Chezi and I disagree about things, is the Christian call is to St. Maximus, thoroughly hold to the conviction of your truth and not be dogmatic. I mean, that's not being dogmatic. That's just having integrity, Job. And then at the end of and it's not being fearful and using some sort of either masculine or feminine, either overt or covert tactics to win. It's saying, okay, you know, I guess you can kill me. That's the Christian response, I think. And oh man. And I think a lot of this is the difference between TLC and Christian YouTube. Like, I'm not making content. I have no interest in making content. Yeah, I come on here and I do this intro rant and I talk to people, and there's people, I don't know, because that's what I said. If I'm interested in playing in this medium, get to know people and learn, because all true knowledge is personal. Content is for consumers. I don't want to make content for consumers. Zero interest in it. I don't want to make money for making content for consumers. Zero interest in it. Oh, I do want to talk about this because I want to talk about Rogan. Joe Rogan is what was I thinking on my run? He's in a sense, he's kind of the prophet of personalism, and he talks a lot about following the muse. Because here's the thing. Following the muse is the same thing kind of as like following your bliss. And I think that's the answer. I really, really do think following the muse is your answer. And the muse is perfect love casts out fear. The muse isn't directed by fear. When you're following the muse, you're not afraid. You're not reacting to what someone else is doing. You're pursuing what you love. That's following the muse. And that doesn't mean that you don't have to be bold and be brave and take risks and step out and do stuff, but it's not reactionary. It's not Protestant. It's not against what someone else is doing to you. You're like, whatever, you do you, I'm gonna do me. That's what the TLC does. The TLC should not be relationally reactive. It should just, and this is why I think the core of the TLC is people like PBK, who's just like, he's got critics all the time. And this is where I try to follow me as I follow Paul. Follow me as I follow Christ. Follow me as I follow Paul Vanderklay, the apostle of the TLC. Paul's just doing what he's doing. He follows his interests where he wants. He's not beholden to the algorithm. I don't think he's beholden to audience capture. He is relationally engaging with us and talking about us and doing things with us. But Paul runs his channel in I think from watching his videos, his views have gone down. I think fewer and fewer people are interested in him, because here's the thing. People who are tacitly committed to information ecologies and this kind of knowledge, objectivists, aren't going to be interested in Paul. Or they're going to be kind of interested in Paul, but they're not going to get it and they're going to move on. Paul is building actual community because relations are primary, I think. And I think that's beautiful. He's following his muse. That's what Rogan did. Everyone now is trying to game what Rogan did, and they're trying to become the next Rogan. And they're doing it through information and content. Rogan was never doing that. Rogan isn't making content. He is and he is not. His intention is not to make content. Rogan's intention is to talk to people that he finds interesting, which that gets into information ecology a little bit because he doesn't develop ongoing relationships with them. But at the same time, his recurrent guests and like all his buddies and his comedians that come on, and even some of the intellectuals, his frequent guests like Graham Hancock, or who are his other frequent guests? That astrophysicist who came on a lot, who talks about the black holes most recently. Whomever, the frequent guests that come on all the time, he's developing a community and relationships with people. And even with like the Douglas Murray, Dave Smith thing, who he's friends with both. And I saw the clip recently where he was talking about Douglas Murray, and he adamantly disagrees with Douglas Murray. And he's like, and I love him and he's great. And Rogan isn't married to his ideas. Rogan is totally modeling, in my opinion, even though he would not use any of this language, he uses his own language, which I think is similar a lot, that he is, I don't know. I couldn't do it earlier. He's modeling this. He's following his muse. He talks about that all the time. And I think it's lovely. He's not reacting to other people. He's basically gotten completely off social media. And he says sometimes people will send it to him. He's like, I don't care. People that are criticizing me, I don't care. I don't need it. I don't need it. I think you should. That doesn't mean you're anti-criticism. And it doesn't mean you don't want criticism. But meaningful criticism comes from persons that you know and that you respect. If my wife criticizes me, I should think about it. If a good friend criticizes me, I should think about it. If someone that I have an ongoing relationship with to some degree, MJ will criticize me, and I pay attention to it. Anselman, but there are degrees of knowing people. It's very different. Like when MJ criticizes me, it's very different than if like Chad or Nate or someone that I've had a really deep Jeff, who I've met multiple times in my real life, and who I have Sam, and I have an ongoing relationship, who I communicate with every day. My priest, but even my priest doesn't know me to the same degree that these people do. But I have a couple really good local friends. My friend Jake, my friend Jens. These people, if they tell me something and criticize me, or if they say, "Can I tell you something?" that carries weight because of the relationship, not because of facts. The facts are in there. God is he about whom he was speaking. We must never stop speaking. You're always gonna. It's the non-duality that includes duality. Icons. It includes the face and the image, just the static thing, but also the person, the thing that is transcendent outside of Chronos, outside of the linear progression of time, but manifest within all of that. That's what we are. And so this is my hope for TLC. Not that we get caught up in knowledge that puffs up and makes you scared. I'm not. Here's the thing. I ain't worried about it. So, okay. I think I'm gonna try to shut this down at about 2, maybe. So that's 45 minutes, depending on what time thing you're in. I'm gonna pin this thing. I'd love to chat with you. I do not want this to devolve into objectivism about any particular issue. We can talk about that, but relations are primary. If it devolves into like gotcha information ecology crap, I will administrate. What up, Seabax? I wasn't able to finish your whole thing with Chad, but I saw you get a little annoyed at one point.
With who?
I can't remember who it was. It was Chad.
Chad and Dave?
Yeah, I mean, it was really subtle. You probably didn't even realize. Maybe I'm projecting.
I didn't feel annoyed.
No, it wasn't. It was like one of those little things where somebody said something, and you're like, I wasn't saying that.
Oh.
It was just like a little minor thing.
Oh, well,
Who cares?
Trying to tell him, I wanted to make sure he knew I wasn't saying, you're mad about, or like, aren't you happy about your kid being born? I was saying that sarcastically.
Yeah, I know. I caught that too.
Anyways.
That's what's so funny about all this stuff, right? You get married. This is a very Rollins, libido pursue the lack. This thing that will make me whole and complete. I get married. It's gonna be utopia, the no place, right? And then all of a sudden, oh, it's not perfect.
Yep, not perfect. Yeah, that was the thing. I think that's just. I was in a live stream with McMo and Neil Dalis. He was the one that said, like, marriage is a death, but it's also a resurrection. I mean, if you're Christian or, in that, if you allow it to be, I guess, and having kids the same way. And even like, even like with what's happening culturally, like I think some of the malaise probably I'm feeling too is just that death of like this last, I was saying like 2016 to like I think I was thinking about this after I got off the stream with Chad, was that I think we're more like in the 2014 again, like the Gamergate side of like what was happening in culture before it really went off. I think that's kind of maybe what we're seeing. And then in 2016, it kind of just like went nuts.
I'm not sure I remember that stuff so much. I'm a very, believe it or not, I'm a very in the moment person. Like my wife, she was joking the other day because I have like I have a Google Calendar so I can do anything consistently, and she'll often tell me what's the practical stuff of what's happening multiple times before it happens, and then and then like I'll forget, or before it happens and I don't know what's going on. And she's just like, when we get old, she's like, I won't even know when you get dementia. She's like, you'll get dementia and it'll just be like the same thing.
You're talking about all the what happens when the trying to be right, I guess. That sounds like a little bit like
I don't even, so like what's hard about it is I don't by no means, and sorry, I'm just using Nate because I use this as an example. I love the dude and I feel shitty about talking about him, but I really don't want to get caught up in the details of it. But yet I'm using it. I'm using the particular to talk about the transcendent thing, but I don't want to get bound up in the reciprocal narrowing of the particular. So I don't think Nate is thinking about these things of like, he's not thinking like, oh, I want to win this and be right. I think he has legit concerns that well, see, this is the thing, right? There you are, buddy.
I've been backstage for a while.
Oh, sorry, I didn't. Nice. I didn't even see you.
No, please. I actually will silently. I think it'll be good for me to just silently listen to what you have to say.
Okay.
So go ahead and talk about me while I'm right here.
Okay, perfect. You're here at least. And I knew you were in the comments. I don't want to, and whatever. And I love you dearly. So it's all great. But like very often, right? This is the struggle. The fears of what's the saying, right? Anxiety is living in the fear of the future, and shame is living in the fear of the past.
Mm.
And neither of those are what the Christian's called to. That doesn't mean that you don't plan. You're right. Man plans his way and God directs his steps, but you realize like you have to just let all that go. And so I'm not saying like, don't be wise, don't think about the future, don't do all that stuff, because that's a huge part of what our mental gifts are for, is you project these things and you make plans and you do things. But I think it's the Sermon on the Mount. It's the lilies of the field. And so like what I would say is like, let's just say the potential future where there's a huge increase in anti-Semites and like we start persecuting and killing your wife or something, to be extreme. Like that's what I would say is it's not real. It doesn't exist. Like it's a potential thing that's out there.
Are you done?
So I mean, we can keep riffing on it, because I mean, I do want to hear what you have to say, because this is
I'm not going to dive right into the argument, because I think like I think I would rather like, okay, let me ask this question. It's like, I would hope that all y'all know me well enough now that I'm not going to be holding a position for just out of random. It's not going to be random. So I would hope to be given the benefit of the doubt that I hold the position that I do for a reason.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just talk a little bit about the reasons I feel the way I do, and they're complicated, and also it's not an entirely. I'm just being honest about what I see, where I'm standing, and what I feel.
Yes.
Okay. Because there's a lot of what I'm saying lately that is where I am in an obvious, like there's obvious cognitive dissonance with what I have said and expressed in the past. Like my Christian anarchism is out the window at this point. That's like my inner neocon is like absolutely 100% seized control of that situation, and that's because the reality of the world, it came between my idealism and my idealistic principles, and so that's what it is. It's just like the reality of the world showed me that my idealistic principles were a luxury that I could not afford in this moment, and that my sense. Okay, let me give you a little bit more personal detail into how deep the kind of framing that I have on this is. It's like my upbringing was Pentecostal dispensationalists. Okay. Now, when I was growing up and Yeah, go ahead, Christian. You
They
want to say
they did
something?
just bring the real IDs into place, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. So Pentecostal dispensationalists, like constant end times, like speculation, and obviously the nation of Israel is very important to that view of the world. Okay.
We keep talking, we might get hezzy.
So with that background, I've had a lifelong affinity for Judaism, and I've always um and I have a deep and abiding respect for the nation of Israel. And it's like I never stop. Like I don't have it in me to have like a fully replacement theology. It just doesn't work for me. And this is something that's been consistent. You go back and like this is not new, right?
You're talking about like
Also,
supersessionism?
and my critique of the neo-Nietzschean right is also not new. Like these are things that I've been like warning about the extremes of the neo-Nietzschean right, and saying that I believe that God is doing something with the nation of Israel that is real, and that the church does not replace entirely is also something I have always said.
Right.
And these are ideas that are like deep in me from my upbringing that I can't get away with entirely. And when I see what's going on in the world, to me, what it looks like is that if anti-Semitism is definitely on not take TLC out of it for a minute, right? It's definitely true that anti-Semitism is on the rise in the United States as a large because of nonstop propaganda. Like that's just obviously the case. So what is happening in the culture at large is also going to have an impact on TLC. One can reasonably presume. Now, I'm trying to issue a warning. What I'm not saying is TLC is full of rabid anti-Semites and no one should have anything to do with TLC anymore. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that what's going on in the culture at large is also having an impact on TLC. And I do see signs of a directional change that concerns me. And I want to call attention to that. That's what I'm saying. I also do happen to agree with where Lindsay and Peterson are standing because of my aforementioned views on Israel, which have the complex origins that they do in my thinking. And it's not something that I'm going to change my mind on. It's pretty like I'm pretty all in at this point. It's like I have a Jewish wife. This is like there's emotionally I'm not changing my direction on this. One also shouldn't presume that because I feel the way that I do about Israel, that means that like I am in favor of the wanton slaughter of innocents. What one should conclude is that I probably don't think that's what's going on. And if we can have a discussion.
You're talking about the deaths of Palestinians in Gaza.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I don't think. I mean, I think it's an abuse of the term genocide to call what's going on in Gaza a genocide.
Well, I mean, it's definitely inflammatory. It's like, I mean, maybe some people would say it's
a genocide. Genocide has
a
specific meaning. Genocide means that you are targeting people because of their race with the intention of eliminating them from existence. That's what a genocide is.
Before we go further down that, can I poke around a little?
Sure, go for it.
So, went to the Orthodox Arts Festival in Dallas. Spent a bunch of time. Some TLC folks, a couple people grabbed me, recognized my face off of Twitter or TLC stuff. That's probably the most I've seen that happen. That was kind of interesting. A lot of conversations in this regarding this going on within the broader Orthodox and Orthodox friendly communities. So that's been really interesting. Nate, I've been really interested to have a conversation with you because I'm someone who sees myself as part of the new right. And then I'm also deep in on Father Stephen's work and playing with Daniel Boyerhin and these various conversations with rabbinic, Pharisaic inheritance communities, right? My godfather is Palestinian, grew up in Bethlehem, right? I'm part of the Antiochian diocese, so a lot of Palestinians, Lebanese, what have you. And so It's very complicated, and I'm usually, and I found myself, especially this last weekend, steel manning Lindsay and Peterson regularly, because I'm an Orthodox Christian first, but I am deeply a Petersonian, and so
Can I tell you where, Michael? I want to point to something really quick that I think has been missed. I think. Can I tell you where I think the bridge is located between Lindsay and Peterson and the New Right? The bridge is that if you look very closely at that Peterson Lindsay conversation, it's very evident that for Lindsay, his realism is deeper than his liberalism. So then the dialogue should become, okay, does the New Right care more about being anti-liberal in a country that has been liberal from its very beginnings, or is it more invested in having a conversation that centers some kind of philosophical realism and the possibility of there being truth?
Well,
because
also,
if it's willing to talk with liberals who also share a fundamental underlying realism, then there's a dialogue to happen where we can actually correct the flaws within liberalism. And even if it does end up getting replaced, it will be replaced in a healthier, more gradual way rather than a sudden shift like we had in the Reformation, when tradition was kind of overthrown far too rapidly.
That's roughly
by liberal forces.
That's roughly the same case that I've been making. But there is a fight going on what the New Right is.
Yeah, for sure. And a fight for its soul. And I think that's like I think that there are good actors. Let me be very clear. There are good actors within the New Right. Like my priest is a post-liberal of the kind of Anglican variety, which is kind of like, it's post-liberal, but it's kind of like a slightly left-leaning version of post-liberal. So I don't know if you would really consider that New Right or not, but certainly not a liberal. We get along. We can have productive conversations. We both are aware of the fact that we have like deeper-seated underlying principles. Because the thing about it is that liberalism was never intended to be foundational. That's actually kind of its point. Is that liberalism is trying to set up a kind of agnostic political order that allows for people to bring their own foundations to the party and then have productive political discussions across divides.
So one way I've been thinking about it is that the Statue of Liberty doesn't need to be taken down, but Lady Liberty does need to bend the knee to Christ. Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, yeah, I think it's definitely yes, because the reason when liberalism was working in this country, it was working in this country because we had a default Protestant Christian culture that was underneath it, so that we weren't rudderless. Okay. We weren't rudderless.
The thing I've been sorry, go ahead,
I was just going to add that that ideal about liberalism is, I mean, Charles Taylor and Keller went on to say that it, in some certain ways, that it's not neutral though. Like it can't hold as neutral. And I think because what you just even said about the de facto state church of mainline Protestantism acting as something, it wasn't like the seculum was actually secular. It wasn't a secular neutral, actually. Like something else took a new ideology took the foundation and took the rudder.
Yeah, and we can talk about how that happened. And I think that I think Lindsay's got a point that it happened through Marxist infiltration. Like it's like we won the Cold War, but in the process of winning the Cold War, we also had our culture destroyed from the inside by actors that had been planted within our culture from outside.
Radical neo-Marxists.
So Nate, let me get your thoughts on this. To me, this what they're trying to point at is a thing that they've been saying for a long time, especially Peterson, is effectively the way that resentment can corrupt anywhere.
Yes. And I think this is funny because like they got mean to death about like talking about Milton's Lucifer, but that was precisely the right place, or the Milton Satan, because that was precisely the right place to point. because what Milton Satan is noted for is this literary idea of injured merit, which you also see reflected in Shakespeare's Iago and in Walter White in Breaking Bad, right? It's like that's the kind of that when you have that sense of injured merit, that's what allows you to fall really far, really fast.
Yeah.
And to think you're justified in everything that you do.
So one of the things I've been trying to remind people, maybe I've just kind of gotten stuck on this on a loop, but I've been trying to remind people of in these conversations is deeply what Father Stephen's work in the last year has been, which is to understand that we're both the inheritance of this Pharisaic tradition. One is Messiah-centric and points to, you know, metaphysical realities and the highest metaphysical reality of Messiah itself. And the other certainly has a different path. But it's like, especially for Christians, Messiahans, right? It's like,
right,
they're the closest to you. It's your responsibility to talk with them, to work with them, to encourage in love a course correction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been pointing at a recognition of the Pharisee inheritance, right? Because there is a deep misunderstanding on what that is. Hence, again, Father Stephen's book, St. Paul the Pharisee, and really laying this out.
So I want to push back to my intro and talking about knowledge versus knowledge puffs up. We can be right about everything we've said, but love edifies. So what does it mean if you're right about everything, but you're relationally wrong? And even now, because like all this stuff, it makes me think of also Father Stephen Freeman said something like, nobody ever knows anything in general. You only ever know anything in particular. And so like, and I've been thinking about the hidden life. So like when he's sitting there in prison and they're just like, do this and you can get out and you'll be free. And he's like, I am free. That's the kind of shit I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And even in this space, because the point is about spaces to know people. And I think it's about a liminal time in this new medium and being able, hopefully, maybe this is grandiose, of creating new spaces where people can actually engage and talk about, because we're going to be talking about ideas, but they get to know people and they cultivate a spirit of getting to know people in such a way that you don't crucify people for the rightness of your facts. Because James Lindsay ain't going to fucking do that.
Well, him and Peterson didn't name any names when they did their conversation, though. They actually intentionally avoided naming names.
I didn't. Well, and I don't. And I guess I'm a little bit ignorant of that because this is the thing. I said this in a live stream the other day. Like Lindsay and Peterson, I don't watch. Increasingly, I don't watch them. The only content that I watch, like the only things I look for, are stuff in my subs. Grail Country. Do they have a video? Does Christian have a video? Is there a live stream going on? I'll talk to you guys because I believe this shit.
Well, that's what I've noticed. I've noticed a characterization about Peterson and Lindsay's point of people who used to give them more attention, now give them less attention. And what I hear them saying doesn't align with, because I do give them quite a bit of attention still. It doesn't seem to align with what they're actually.
I mean, to be fair, I hated Lindsay until he started talking about this, because my criticism of Lindsay, by the way, if you can go back and look at my Twitter history too, my criticism of Lindsay was always, why don't you talk about the wokeness and the postmodernism on the right as well? Because that was the thing I kept saying, is like, because I'm actually, for very good reasons, I'm actually way more concerned about the right than the left, because the left, at the end of the day, they're going to maybe turn everybody over to the orgies of Pan, but they don't have the stomach to enact the kind of violence that the right does when the right goes off the rails.
So this is where, you know, the word fascist and the turn from, you know, the a Bolshevik communist left-leaning thing somehow gives birth to a fascistic national socialism aggressive thing, right? And that's the concern. But the unifying force of that, right? Again, resentment, right? This is why Peterson won't stop talking about the spirit of Cain.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was gone for a while. Mark, have you been able, are you just listening? Do you have anything to contribute?
You keep jumping about, so I'm like, I was going to say this, but you've moved on. Oh, but no, come back. So I'll say a few things.
Okay.
Jordan Peterson isn't right wing. The reason the left hate him is because he's what the left should look like, but they don't.
That's probably very well said.
What could anger you more than that? I don't know how to articulate that, but
I think you did a great job.
No, I think
okay, cool.
That's the point, actually, is that like, particularly in this country, because we have had a stable center that is default liberal for a long time, and now it's the liberals that are under attack from both directions. So we're actually, like, it's war against the center from all sides, and American identity is being destroyed. And we have no idea what's going to happen. And this is where I think Lindsay is, like, way too lacking in imagination in terms of, like, what is this about? He thinks it's about dividing MAGA. Dividing MAGA is, like, so, like, that's such a small thing to what it really represents. When you have young American women falling into woke left ideology and young American men falling into woke right ideology and core American values being abandoned and attacked on all sides, what you have is no cohesive national identity for Americans whatsoever, and young men and young women who can't talk to each other. So it's not going to destroy MAGA, it's going to destroy American civilization.
What it sounds like to me is a metagame played by demons in that hideous strength to get us to stop breeding.
So Nate, I'm not sure how much I disagree with you. So I can see that there are world dying, right? Maybe already dead, right? And that there's birthing happening out of it. Now, the way we talk about this stuff, also what you're calling left or what you're calling liberal, what you're calling conservative, what you're calling traditional, is deeply dependent on where you personally stand, right? And what it looks like to you from your perspective. So I'm noticing that language changing a lot depending on who I talk to about it, right? Now, to my absolute surprise, being somebody that was, like, building a local indivisible coalition in 2016 to protest Trump, right? Now I'm like, I'm here for the laughs, right? And I'm all about what Trump is doing. And I'm very thankful for Trump compared to some of the Nietzschean right that I have become familiar with and know and even have friends with. They're neighbors to my parents, right? And some of the inclinations that they have, right, are far darker. And I'm thankful for the guy that wants to return to the 80s.
Yeah. You know, part of this, by the way, I mean, honestly, I'll just be very honest. Part of this is just me being older, right? So it's like functioning American culture and functioning liberalism are something that is a living memory for me, that I lived through and that I saw. And for these young guys that are getting caught up in some of these extreme right-wing politics, they've never seen that. So how can they even imagine it's possible when it's never been part of their experience? I get that.
They do imagine it's possible. They're bitter that it's not that, and so they will burn it down and want to rebuild it for themselves. And they want war. A lot of them want war.
Yeah,
they want to be warriors more than they want to be brave. They want to be a warrior.
Yeah, it's Aries incarnating.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, and that's what I'm worried about, because I'm worried about that's going to be the spirit that takes over.
Yeah, Yeah.
Oh, it's
And,
We're in a war of
post,
cults, guys.
right, and the post-election thirst for vengeance from the winning side. It's like the winning side is not done wanting to punish its enemies, even though it won. That is so un-American and so destructive and so disturbing for me to see.
So how do you
How do you
de-escalate?
They're doing it explicitly, not through they're not doing it implicitly. That's the only difference between the last two situations, I think.
That's true. Definitely, I would say the Biden administration did the same thing, to be totally fair. I agree.
It was, but it was, trying to do it like back.
If I could chime in real quick, just before we get away from the word, I think it's fitting that you said Aries incarnate. We just had Neptune move into Aries, which is a very slow moving transit. Like I don't forget. I think it's like 128 years or something to go all the way around the zodiac. And Neptune Aries is the spiritual warrior, like the guy who has an ideal, a dream ideal, and is like, I'm going.
Holy shit! How coincidental is that?
I'm going to instantiate this ideal, and like, even if by violent martial means, because Aries is ruled by Mars, and also that's kind of fitting as far as
a violent ideal.
Yeah. Yeah, and also it's also kind of fitting insofar as I kind of look at the zodiac, where the left side is more. I tend to look at things through the like Ahriman and Lucifer, or Yaldabaoth and Lucifer, and Christ in the middle, and I think that maps the zodiac in some sense, and that would put Aries on this very traditional, like I don't know if it's kind of loose associational at that point, but it's just yeah.
Well, that's the Luciferic part is the dark, and that's the dark fake enlightenment that Lindsay and Peterson were talking about. The Ahrimanic part comes later, right? They actually, so those two sides of evil, they work together. So the Luciferic hooks you first and makes you and brings you into this dark enlightenment that makes you think that you have the vision, and then the Ahrimanic takes over, and you have the energy to enact that vision at any cost.
So Nate,
it becomes
Zeus, right? Zeus and the false light, right? And it always comes with paranoia from the sabotage of the father that was betrayed.
Okay, so Nate, if you want to keep going with this, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm gonna shut it down at 2 because I gotta go get stuff to make BLTs. I think
this was good. Thank you.
I would like to cage the end of it like this, though, because, like, again, knowing as you are known. I don't know James Lindsay. I don't know Peterson. I consume their content. I don't know them at all. I've never met them. Probably never will. Don't have any interest to. I know you guys through this medium. Knowing as you are known. How do we... I try to cultivate a space that I think is moving more toward people having sex and babies and not screaming at each other all the time, hopefully. I mean, my primary goal here is for people to be hooking up. Okay? We need some more women on screen. But getting married. Listen, I will trample down death by whatever means. If have premarital sex at this point, okay? Who cares? Have babies, all right? I'm not prescribing it. I'm just saying it's better than we all been dying in depopulation. But how do we cultivate spaces both so we can do it this way in TLC where we can talk about it, get to know persons first. So it's about you guys. I know you guys. It's not, I don't want to talk to academics. I don't give a shit. Go do your academic stuff. I don't care. I want to talk to people and get to know them because that's the thing that's going to actually affect how people live and change so that we could build physical spaces, maybe, that lend toward people getting married and having babies. And that's a lot of what the whole American system is, the whole space is orchestrated against us. How do we start changing that?
I would say that the fear of losing, like what, Nate being old enough to kind of have remembered the American dream ideal enacted, is that to Luke's point, it's going away whether we want it to or not. And even if it's sad, and we wish that maybe our kids could have had some of the things that we obviously we took for granted or something in a certain way. But to the point, what Luke's, it sounds like, is making is that the influence that we have upon each other from one another in the digital space, may it be possible that it can spill out into reality, that hospitality, care, respect, and honor, and these things that I think some of those words would actually speak to a younger generation. They're looking for real examples of those things, and then try to build them in our churches and our synagogues. Like, try to build them there. Like, really try to influence marriages and babies and lives to be shaped where we go, where it spills out. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I just want to highlight these two Schenkenstein comments because they're amazing. That's maybe one of the best one besides Yawn Gods about like Christ is king. That was also funny. But this one is like legitimately good. And then also this. That's right. Sacrificing the Ares extreme violent ideal for normal human life.
Mhm.
Those two are about my favorite ones. Good job.
Yeah.
Let's go be hobbits.
Yeah.
This one's also good.
So I've been thinking a lot about Galatians.
Okay.
And you have the circumcised Pharisees who are now oriented towards Messiah, right? But they don't really want to sit with the weirdo non-circumcised people that are coming in. They're separate. They're at separate tables. They won't eat together, right? And Peter is even like, all right, goes along with it, whatever. And Paul has to come in and put the hammer down on everybody. No, you all sit down together and share in Eucharistic Thanksgiving, eating together. Everybody, you cannot separate like this. This is
Estuary.
I think, yeah, estuary, but I think that's it. Common meals. A lot of this has to do with food stuff. Like what Jose on what's the guy's name? Famous chef was just on Rogan talking about food. That's a common thing that comes up on Rogan. Eating together. Sherry, Nate up at Northwestuary. Barbecue. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So,
spaces to eat together.
So just to land on where Paul lands on that, right, is
can I get
not
my
circumcised or circumcised, right?
Yes.
Circumcised.
Can I
Yes.
give my somewhat serious pitch as to how to restore American culture?
Let's hear it.
Yeah.
American kids need to stop playing soccer and play baseball again. It's more important. It's more important than you think.
I think. Well, also like video games. Stop playing video games.
That's nationalistic.
That's some of it.
That's a little bit.
America could use greater restaurants too. Favorite restaurant meal of my life, Quebec City, one seating. It was like a dive bar. They cook on like old. It's my French is terrible. It's like the affair of ketchup or something like that. That's the name of the restaurant. It was amazing. They have like the old coil grills like that you see in your grandma's kitchen. Nothing fancy. Not like fine dining, small portions, big portions, but high quality food. You drink an entire bottle of wine, maybe two. You hang out for 3 or 4 hours. Where are those American restaurants? They don't exist.
All day. Barbecue all day. Have barbecues. Invite people over for the barbecues. Barbecue.
Barbecue and
barbecue, baseball, and beer, and we're good to go.
Okay. Also, go Timberwolves, I think. Okay.
Also, it's a beautiful spot to end. I just joined a little late. Of course, I have so many thoughts, but also, I suppose this would be timely to say, I've been thinking about those ideas as well. I'm trying to move out of my parents' house. It would be nice to not like get some lame apartment or something. It's like maybe there's people from Estuary that I could
hell yeah, buddy.
And I actually just bought a van today. The plan is to do a little bit of a road trip until Midwestuary, and we're gonna hopefully visit some people from the spaces, and it's very exciting. And
nice.
Woo!
Listen, I'm still hot on TLC. I still love it. Other people want to call it other things. Like I was talking with Trip and Sam, they want to call it PVK World, and I'm like, you guys are such like it's emanation and emergence. It's so clearly emerged. TLC is the name. Like, I mean, you're just a Protestant if you want to call it something else.
Oh, damn.
I remember I proposed this little clearing.
This little clearing. That's a nice one because that's that Rumi quote.
Yeah, it's
out
also,
beyond right and wrong. There's a field. I'll meet you
also
there.
Heidegger, right?
Can we
So-
call it?
I'm still
Can you tell
reworking
us-
the thislittlecorner.com, so let's not change it, please.
Dude.
Are you gonna?
Oh,
Are
you
you
kicked
trying
it
to
on?
fix that?
Yeah.
I've got transcripts working. I'm just
That's
it's coming along. It's coming.
that's such a
Oh,
good
good.
tool. Good. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
I was really sad. That's like a great tool for clipping as well. Like I like to do the clips, and when I make like the mega clips where I put a bunch of videos together, you know, you could go to TLC, you search for a particular word or topic, you know, you find this awesome clip. That was a great website. That's exciting to hear that it'll be back.
Yes. All right. Well, cool.
All
On that
right.
note, let's shut her down. Thanks, guys.
All right.
I
Thanks, Luke.
appreciate it. It was a good one. Knowing as you are known. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye,
Peace
y'all.
out, everyone. Love people. Have babies. Eat barbecue. Play baseball.